Order at 6 p.m. Welcome, everyone. We're going to stand and have a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The first item that we're going to talk about is the discussion to change the ages and rename sections accordingly, and adding signage indicating name and suggested ages. We did have made some suggestions.
Well, they're actually collected suggestions from all the board members.
Okay, you want to go ahead? Do we want to have him read all the collected?
Sure. Do we
Sure.
have a copy of it in front of us, or what is it?
Yeah,
This
that's
one?
it.
Okay.
Sure. You want me to read it, or? It's this section, it's number 2.
Okay.
I think that's,
Now, how are we going to do this? He's going to read it and then what?
Page,
Then we talk about each one, or?
well, I can go ahead. It's number 2 on page 2. It says the age range suggestions. Right now, the age range for coming to the library alone and picking out books is 12. This says increase the age for checking out books from the young adult section from 12 to 13. Require children under 13 instead of 12 to be accompanied by a parent or guardian. And divide the young adult section into 2 age groups, 13 to 14 and 15 to 17, or, we'll talk about the ages. And there is concern that this would require all books in this section to be re-reviewed and read by library staff, and that new books would have to be subject to extensive review and read in their entirety. As most books are classified as suitable for a starting age, but do not necessarily have an age range. The 2 sections would lie adjacent to each other, thus blurring any distinction. The labeling and signage, well, let's talk about changing the ages first.
So I did just want to point out, so you're talking about changing the age of the safe child policy. That doesn't change the age of who can check out from the young adult section. It just changes the age, it ups the age of who can and cannot be at the library without their parent beside them. So right now it's 12, or it's under 12. So I don't know if you wanted to say, you want to say under 13, correct?
Yes.
I gave everybody a copy of the child safety policy.
I think there's 2 separate issues. One is who can be in the library without a parent, and then changing the age range of young adult, upping it to 13. So there's 2 different, I think there are 2 different. When I was gathering information from the board, it seemed like those were two separate issues.
So right now, there's no signage to really say what the age ranges of any of the sections are. So that would be adding that age range on signage that says this young adult section, 13 to 18, 17.
Unless,
However
of
y'all
course,
wanna
the
do
parent
that.
says otherwise, that they're
Right.
allowed to.
Right.
But the children's area is 12 and under, correct? The way you put the books in the children's area?
Yes, generally, yeah.
So it would be moved up to 13 and under.
No, 13.
13 and under
would
is
be
just
YA.
about the parents. whether
13
parents
would
have
be
to
YA.
Okay. Do we want to talk about the safe child policy first and just make a decision on that, and then talk about the,
Yes,
Book
because then we
ages.
could get our posters
Mhm.
put up too if we change the safe child policy.
okay.
So that change would read, children under the age of 13 must be continually accompanied by a parent, guardian, or responsible caregiver. Children 13 and over may use the library unattended for any length of time, et cetera.
That's one item, right. And then the other is access to the,
Right. This is just the vote to change the policy, though,
Right.
if you wanted to vote.
I mean, if we're going to vote,
Yeah.
Now, are there any signs up right now with that
No.
stating on there? Okay, so these would be brand-new signs.
Yeah. We waited to change the policy first.
And do you, as a librarian, Stephanie, see any negative or positive to changing the age to 13?
I think it's positive. I
Okay.
mean, we were the ones who brought it to the board because it used to be 10. And we were just like, that seems a little bit, and with it under the age of 12, I think we were thinking that 12-year-olds would be included in that, but you can't do that until you say under the age of 13.
Right.
So I think everybody's comfortable with that.
So the enforcement of this is the same, everything listed below would be the same, right? It's just the age that we're changing.
Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah.
I think the only thing that it could, and this is not a major problem, is that sometimes 12-year-olds come to our teen programs, and they would not, their parent would have to stay instead of dropping them off.
Okay. Do they need to be in the same room, or can they go, wander the stacks and look for books while their child's in the program?
They would need to be close.
Close, okay.
Yeah.
Are we voting on
have
this
a-
tonight?
Yeah, I would like to get this one taken care of so that because this is the one that is controlling like the signs for the library, all the libraries and everything.
Okay. I'll make a
So-
motion that we change the safe child policy to increase the age to children under the age of 13.
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? It passes. Okay, so now that this child safety policy has been changed, we can go to the signage. This says, place age suggestions on J, juvenile, and young adults. This would be labor intensive for the limited staff at the library. Display signs that the books in the J and YA sections may not align with the beliefs of parents. Reconsider books in a separate YA section and label the section and books as such, including signage for this section as in B.
I think it would put an incredible stress on the library staff if we asked them to put age suggestions in every book. I just don't see that. And then there would have to be incredible discussion about each and every book in the library that's in those sections. I don't see that as a practical solution. It was included here just as a suggestion, but I don't see it as viable.
Can you tell us again, Stephanie, how, so they're classified by the publisher, it's just a range, right?
Yeah, and usually it is an age and up. So
Okay.
it's not like 14 to 16, it's 14 and up. So you would have to have very specific criteria to give to who was making that decision. You'd also have to talk about, are we going back and doing it with all the books that we already have? And really with the one age and up, you'd be asking staff to review each book for content.
Which means you'd have to read the entire book.
Basically, if they, I mean, they would be under they would want to be following policy, but it would almost be impossible to do without reading the entire book. To see if there was any criteria that met one section over the other. And the board would have to provide that specific criteria. It couldn't be vague.
Any input from other librarians or libraries on how they're handling their young adult sections with the age range?
And let me just say, that's where these two things came from. was-
Oh.
That I got.
Okay.
Was from some other libraries, other district, even other states.
Okay.
Because I looked to see what other states were doing too.
I can definitely reach out to them and see how they do that.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
mean, but that's why I included it in mine.
Oh, okay. I don't know of a library near here unless it's, that
One of
are
these
doing
was,
that.
None in the upstate.
Okay,
And one of these was actually Alabama was
okay.
doing some reconsiderations. And, of course, Florida was re-looking after their policies that they did.
I think that it would be worth the time if we want parents to be more responsible for their children and be more accountable for what their children and take more place. I think the parents need to know all the information they can get to be that way. So I think that it might be labor intensive, but I really believe, isn't that something that volunteers could do? To help do?
They would have to have really explicit instructions, and I think those are hard to come up with, because I think,
Well, how do you place a book in that section?
Well, one of the things, if you look at C, that may be something to consider there.
well, putting reconsideration books in a separate section.
Yes.
I would be adamantly opposed to that, because I think then we're allowing individuals who may object to a book to be deciding on library policy on a book-by-book basis, and I don't think we want to get into that.
I have thought, of course, I've thought about it, because that was my suggestion. I do think if we have a separate reconsidered books section, then there are certainly children who are going to make a beeline for that section, because we're putting a great big spotlight that these are books that are being reconsidered. And then the other question is, are they in that section forever? For all eternity, if they were reconsidered this year, 25 years from now, if they're still in the library, are they always reconsidered? So I'm not sure that's a viable suggestion.
I like the display the books in the sections and have the sign that say these may not align with the beliefs of parents. And that is like a cautionary sign that says, okay, parents, you need to take a second look at this, and if you decide that your children can read it, then they can read it. If not, again, it's up to the parents.
That certainly couldn't, there's nothing negative about putting that signage. I like the idea of maybe doing a little research to see if there's any library system anywhere that has figured out a way to somehow differentiate between 12 and 14 and 15 and 17. If anyone has figured out a way that doesn't require librarians to read every single book the whole way through, I don't know what that would be.
The other part of that is, and I've talked with our youth services manager about that, because I thought, at first I was like, oh, we need a new adult section. That'll just solve everything. We'll split that section in two. But then when you think of space-wise, it's going to be either right next to the YA section, or it's going to be moved to right next to the adult section. So you're either welcoming those kids into the adult section, or it's essentially the same as it would be if they were they're in the same, here they would be in the same area. In the branches, it would be even more.
Right, they're so small, there'd be no room.
You're doing all of that work, and they're right next to each other, or in the adult section.
Right. I suppose if they were labeled differently somehow, that would be helpful for parents to see the labeling. To be like, I think you had the color coding suggestion. So if they were blue, we know that's appropriate for this age range, and green that would be a very obvious way for parents to see that.
We could do that for the entire YA section, and I've talked to our collections manager if we just put a different color spine label. I still think if you split that section, you're going to have to give very clear guidelines, and I can look and see what other libraries are doing, but that's the only way that I think they're going to do, because the publishers aren't going to give them that. They've already given them what they're going to give them, so it would be trying to figure out what guidelines they're using to give their staff to separate those books.
So when you get a book in, you look at it, and how do you determine whether it's in juvenile or young adult?
The publisher usually gives us an age range.
So you rely on the publisher and not reading the book? Meaning that's what the process is right now, right?
Yeah, we couldn't read the book. A lot of times when we order books, we get a summary, we don't read every book before we purchase it. That's kind of,
So if it goes, like if a book comes in and it says 12 and up, or 13 and up, you automatically put it in the juvenile section?
I think if the youth services librarian or the collections, or they came across a book, and I've had this happen, and it seems out of place, then they would ask myself or the library director or the collection supervisor, hey, this is kind of weird. What do you think? But that doesn't happen very often.
So if we put restrictions on it, like a guideline, like you suggested, then you're going to have to go through the book anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. And that it would be very difficult to order books, especially popular books, because we couldn't order them until they'd been published. A lot of books we order before they're published, so they can be at the library on their street date, the day that they're sold.
But wouldn't there be a summary and something from the publisher on the book, kind of doing a description of the book already?
We don't see the physical books when we order books. We look at a catalog with a summary and a picture, maybe, and we sort of go on our knowledge of, I think this is a good book, I know this author, and make a selection based on that. I think this would be good for the collection. We don't have very many of these items. It's a whole collection development policy that everybody who's choosing the books in Pickens County has gone to school for and gotten a master's degree to learn how to do. So, and then the other side of that is if there is something that somebody objects to, something that we do put on the shelf, that's the reconsideration process. You have a process to bring this to our attention. And then we can say, yes, it belongs, or no, that is in the wrong place. Like I recently had a reconsideration for a book, and she was like, I think this is in the wrong place. Looked at the book, it was in the wrong place, moved it, good. Every reconsideration isn't this big thing. Sometimes we put that book in the wrong place.
I'm going to inject right there that it would be good if we probably have to change the policy on the selection process, but the board needs to be involved with that, most definitely.
Choosing the books.
Yeah, through your book selection. I think that would be good that we would be involved in that.
How
part.
so?
Well, just give me an idea when you get books in. What is that process as far as what you do with the help of your staff in looking at the books that come in? And you said, one said, this book's a little bit, and you decide to move it.
Mhm.
What's entailed in that for you guys?
Like I said, it doesn't happen that often. It would be a mistake that we've put a book in the wrong place that should have gone in J and it was in YA or something like that. So the book ordering process is that every book purchaser in Pickens County is a master's degree librarian. So the branch managers order all of their books. And then here at Easley, we have several who order since it's the headquarters library. And then the youth services department order all of the youth books for the whole system. So that is what they do. They are trained to just do that section. Those books come in, they get processed, and as they're being shelved, a librarian can look at it and be like, this looks like a juvenile book. Why is it in YA? I need to go research this.
Okay.
And if they can't, then they bring it to me or bring it to the collections and say, can you look at this and see where it needs to go? And then we make a decision.
Now, does each library manager of their library, they know each book that's coming in, or they have some kind of?
They purchase the books.
They purchase
So they
the
know
books.
what's coming in.
Well, it wouldn't be hard for the library board to have a list from each library, and we just go down the list as the board. And if there's summary there, if we feel like, hey, we might need to check this summary out, I think we need to be involved in it. We're responsible totally for the library. And so I think it would be good, but,
Yeah.
I know we're on age and et cetera and stuff here right now, but when you was bringing up that book selection and stuff, it's a good time for me to ask, to learn a little more about it.
Well, let me ask, how many books
That's- I
is
was
the
gonna
library,
ask,
is the
what's the
library
volume?
purchasing every year?
Thousands.
That's
So
what I was
it would be over 1,000 a month.
A month?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you'd have to also look at, that's not counting, overdrive and things like that. So you'd be really slowing down our ordering process, which I don't think our patrons would
Yeah.
like. And I think, just in terms of my experience, a board has never done that before. I think it would be sort of out of line with what your duties are. Not
It
to say you
says
can
South
do
Carolina
it.
State Library in there that says choirs, books, and other library materials, library boards, powers, duties, and granted. by
Right.
This act.
But it also says, here are the duties of the board, and here are the duties of the library director. The other thing I was going to say is you're sort of overriding all of your professional librarians and their experience in choosing books.
Well, we are responsible, totally responsible, and I know they're professionals, but there's just some of us, we have experience along with age and education. We may not have a master's degree, but a lot of us got common sense, and we can detect when there's a problem. And so I'm having a hard time with that many books coming in. I don't see how a library manager of a library can go through, order whatever, and make that order. If there's that many books, how can she or he,
I mean, I've done it for years. I've done collection development. They know what their patrons want. They know what to order, and they know what's coming in.
Okay.
I don't think one person could do all of that. But I think the role of the library board is to set the collection development policy. so that they have something to follow, so that your professional librarians have a policy to follow. So you set the policy. And for those things that are missed, there's a reconsideration procedure so that you can look at them and the board can look at
Yeah.
them.
Well, I think we could set the policy that we would like to see the list
I
if we
think,
set policies. I'm just.
I understand, I
yeah.
get it. I'm, as a board member, I don't think it's my responsibility to read through 1,000 book titles a month. I also don't have the expertise or knowledge to do that. I'm also interpreting the board being responsible for acquiring books is not selecting books. I think our role is to ensure that the library is purchasing books. I don't think it's our responsibility to look at every single book that the library system is purchasing. We all have lives and jobs and things. How could we look at that many books?
But we're
Well-
also part of our community.
Yeah.
And the community is speaking out, and not all, but some are speaking out, and we need more strict policies for parents to be able to make these choices for the kids. So if there's books everywhere, at least there needs to be some accountability to somebody, because the community is speaking. They're wanting change. So we can't just say, well, this is the way it is, and it's a lot of books. Completely understand, completely. But if the guideline is as simple as we rely on the publisher, the publisher doesn't live in our community. It doesn't have the morals and values of our community. So their restrictions are not based on what the community is asking.
I think that's what we're trying to decide today, is to be able to give parents more choice, but
But if the books are coming in and they're being put on a shelf with the publisher deciding where they go, how is that giving parents more responsibility?
Because we will label them, like the blue labels, then that tells the parent they need to be responsible and they need to look at that.
Meaning, the blue label would be youth adult, so the parent needs to pay attention because it's a youth adult book?
Right, is that not what the section, how you would do that?
because the other option is to not purchase the books at all, that, and denying every parent who wants their child to read that book, not that opportunity. That's the flip side of that, right? If we are not choosing to not purchase certain books for whatever reason, every parent who would be interested in having that book for their child won't have that opportunity, because we've decided.
But they can request it.
To be purchased?
Yeah. Can't we have a request form? If there's a popular book that's not here, how do you get, does someone speak up or call or email or whatever if there's a collection that's not here yet that they would like to have?
Request books, but it's part of our job as library professionals to order the books that our community wants to read and we think that they would be interested in.
But there's a problem with that. They're speaking out about that.
A part of the community is speaking out about that.
It's still the community.
Not the whole
It's
community.
still the community.
Yeah, but you have the whole community. So it's part of the community that's
But
speaking
is it
out
one
about
person part of the community? Even if it was one person speaking out, we should still take their opinion and hear their voice.
We
Isn't
should,
that
but
called
we
censorship
shouldn't,
if
we
don't?
shouldn't make an entire policy around one person or a small group of people. Then you're not serving the community.
And that's what the reconsideration request is for.
Right.
That's,
But
The
if-
other part of that too is during all of the public comments and everything, we've heard from both sides. So, you know, there's a lot of people speaking out from both sides.
To me, a compromise is having books for everybody, but putting policies in place for parents to have choice.
Yes.
Right.
I don't know how we do that, but that's what I think. To me, is a solution to have books for everybody, that everybody wants. Even if you don't like it, it's there, but then there's some policy in place where parents can protect their children and parents have responsibility. I don't know how we do that. I'm not there yet, but that's what I would like to see.
I'll tell you what I had been talking about today in conversations with what our system could do, like our library system. We can limit what kids check out based on their age, what sections they check out from. So for instance, if you, right now we,
the parental
based on what the parent decides.
parental input.
So if we do a new a juvenile card application, it could say A box could have your child, if your child is 12 and under, they can have access to the children's section for checkout and the juvenile, and that's it. Or you can say, I want my child to have access to everything, or you can say, I want them to have access to just children's, juvenile, and YA, and not the adult section until they're an adult. So it sort of splits that section in terms of what they can check out. Does
Okay,
that make
that's
sense?
sort of like what you were suggesting a while back.
It's not a
right?
different card,
How
it's
would
just
that-
a different
But how
account.
would, like, so they'd have a card, the person comes up, the kid comes up to check out, and there's like a screen that says, no, this person does not have permission to check this
No,
book
it
out?
would, the book would not, it would, a thing would come up and say, this is a YA book, and this person has only permission to check out
Limited.
children's and J.
But if it's the same card as the parents, how do you separate that?
It won't be, it'll be separate.
Oh, there's a separate youth card.
No, it's the same card, it looks the same, but there's different permissions to the card. We already have that now, we have a youth card, but the cards look the same, so it would just be different permissions.
But it would
I
be
might
the-
suggest that we go to that discussion briefly. The youth card application, which many of you had input, and which I tried to summarize,
No, that's the one they have now.
That's the first.
which has
number down.
those parental opportunities
Okay.
for limitations, so I can read it.
Do you see it?
Okay, thank you. So, remind me again, so at what age can a child have their own library card?
Any age, as long as their parent signs for them.
Lets
It's
them.
actually the parent's card. They're responsible for the whole thing. So if they don't want their child to have access, they don't get them a card.
Okay, so anyone under 17 needs parental permission to get a library card?
Yes.
Okay.
18.
18.
Under 18, and then the parent can, we could decide that the parent can choose what
Sections.
section of books they can, okay. That's helpful, thank you.
So if you'll look at that section, it's actually the first page. What I was gathering from the board and some ideas I had is that you have a card, the youth card, or whatever you call it, for 18 and under. And of course, the parents have to sign, obviously, and it has all the information on it, but the library encourages parents or guardians to be actively engaged in their children's reading habits. To facilitate this involvement, you have the options below to 1, receive notification of any library loans made to your child, and/or 2, to restrict what sections of the library holdings from which your child may borrow books. So, and then you have a section, notification of loans. I am to be notified of loans to my child. You opt in for that, and it's either by text or phone number, or email. I do not want to be notified of loans to my child, so someone has to opt out. They have to actually mark the box and opt out of whether or not they would be notified. And then on restriction of loans, my child is not permitted to borrow books or materials, whatever term is appropriate, from the young adult section, or the adult section, either the young adult or adult section, so that you could restrict that. Or you opt in, my child may borrow books from all sections of the library. These two sections give the parents a considerable amount of control over what books their child can actually check out.
Sorry, another question. So right now, can a child take out a book from any section?
If their parent signs up.
parent-
And that's
okay.
on the application, that your
Okay.
child has access to all the materials.
Okay.
And you're responsible for all the fines. So if a parent is concerned about what their child is reading, then they need to pay attention to what their child is reading if they've gotten a library card for them.
But this would allow the library to block a child. Well, first of all, it would allow the parent to know for sure that what books their child is checking out, so you'll immediately get an email or a text. But it also will block them from getting access to materials that the parent does not want them to have access to, whether it's young adult or adult or both sections. Now, it obviously, I know that one of the concerns is that people,
Go ahead, sorry.
She was interrupting, sorry.
I know, I'm sorry.
We were laughing. I told her not to be rude,
I have lots
sorry.
of questions, but go ahead.
no, it's fine. Now, obviously, there's a caveat which has to remain, which says, I understand children have physical access to all materials in the library. While the library staff will make every effort to direct children to age-appropriate sections and materials, the responsibility for such direction lies with parents. And then it goes on, I assume responsibility for guiding my children and so on. So it doesn't completely prevent a child from accessing materials in sections that you wouldn't want them to, but it would limit their ability to check the books out and bring them home, and it would also notify the parents of every book that the child checks out, if the parent chooses. Now, there are a lot of parents that don't want to know, and that's fine.
It's not that they don't want to know. They believe
want to
that their
restrict. Right.
children have a wide range of information.
And so that personalizes it, in terms of the individual parent.
And from the library standpoint, is there anything difficult about instituting this policy, about having these restrictions on cards?
As far as what we know now, we can set it up to certain age ranges have access to certain collections.
Okay.
So,
So this is physically possible to have this arrangement if parents choose to want to manage their children's access.
And that's something that could go in place pretty much immediately once it's the time to set it up. Right.
yeah, it would just take a little while for us to set it up and run it and make sure it's doing what we want it to do.
And if you
Wouldn't
already
that-
have a card, then of course you have to come back in and change the perimeter.
So notifications would go out to the parents, we've got a new,
Most of them do now, unless they have older, like teenagers, they
Right.
put in their email address or their text, so.
Right.
But this would say, yes, I want everything to come to me.
I updated it a little bit. I changed it a little bit. I just made it more, like I thought, because we're all about the readers and kids getting involved in education and wanting to read and make future readers. So I thought if we gave a separate card to the 13 and under and called them future readers, so they felt like they had their own card and they were their own future reader, that they could do their own checkout, that would make them feel special and actually want to come and use the library card. And also, I was thinking maybe like, I know that you said to have a check mark like for 14 to 17 for have access to juvenile materials or just have access to youth and juvenile. I don't think they should be able to have access to the adult because they're under adult. They are not considered an adult.
That would be up to their parent.
But I think that needs to be that would be up to their parent that they could get adult material.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought you
that's the
said that
idea.
no child under 17 was allowed to go in the adult section.
No.
I mean, there are some parents that feel that their children are mature enough to check things out of the adult section, and that's not for us as a library board to
But
say.
that makes it more complicated for the librarians to be paying attention.
Well, I don't think it'd be any more complex than,
So how it would work is if a 12-year-old, if a 12-year-old with that restriction of you can only check out children's and juvenile came up with a YA book, they'd scan their card, they'd scan the book, and it would say, no,
Yeah.
can't check this out,
right,
not the right card.
they would be flagged.
Yeah.
that's the idea.
Did you mean actually like if a child was actually physically in the adult section?
Well, both. I mean, it doesn't matter. But I know that you keep saying that different colored cards is complicated, but I think it takes less pressure off the librarians checking out if they automatically know. What if a parent didn't update, I mean, like, the older parents, are you going to have everybody come in and re-sign a youth form?
They will have
They
to,
will have-
yeah. We're not rolling it over.
This policy change.
If they're that concerned, and we want to enact this to appreciate that concern, then they are going to have to control that whole process. If they want to update it, they're going to have to come back in and change it,
And they would be notified.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that the policies.
Like when that child turns 13, we're not going to immediately roll it over till they can check out YA. They're going to have to come in and opt in if they want them to have access.
And could we put something on there that they have to have their email address or their contact information, not their child's?
It would be up to the parent. It would be up to the parent what contact information they want on there. It is
But if you're
now.
making them responsible,
The parent's responsible.
yes, if the
Yeah.
parents are
Right.
responsible, then shouldn't they, I mean, how would they ever be notified? What if their kid's doing this behind their
Well, the
back?
parent is filling out the application. So if the parent's comfortable putting their child's email, teenagers usually email on there, and that's okay with them, then they can do that. If they're not comfortable with that, they would put their own email and their own contact information.
But
And the
if there was a
parent signs
loan
off.
or something
Yeah.
like that outstanding, you could still go after the parent.
Yes.
I mean, that's the basis of the notification section.
And then for any new patron coming in, of course, the policy would already be set, and, right, so that
Yeah.
would be the new policy moving forward for anybody
There would
coming
have
to get a
to
new
be
card.
some sort of period where we'd make an announcement.
Right.
And say, we have this new process, you have this amount of time to come in and update your cards, or we're doing this, or, you know, they could come in anytime after that, but this is when we're doing this, and beyond that date, we're not responsible unless you come in.
Maybe signage at the circulation desk,
Yeah,
too,
we
to
could
remind, you know, let
do all
parents
of that.
know.
It's just like we did when we stopped accepting, taking credit of money on that. We put out signs and say, this is over in this date, you know, you gotta spend it, you gotta use it, you know. We're starting a new policy.
Okay.
I see this approach as a good compromise between what we hear from the public and what we should be doing, or the level of maintenance that the library and the library board should be doing. I think it's giving the parents an opportunity to do the kinds of things that they have asked to be able to do.
It's giving all parents the choice.
It gives all
The
parents a
parents that want the freedom to read, and the parents that want to control what their children read.
Right.
This is called compromise, and I think it's a great compromise.
And of course, each child is different, so
Right.
that a parent may say, my child is really immature at this stage.
Right.
I think I should control access to these areas. Other children who are 14 or 15 may be extremely mature, and the parent may judge that and decide that they have access to other sections of the library. The librarians can't know what an individual child's level of maturity is. They just can't. And so this is taking it back to the people that know their children the best and giving them those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think with our discussion, that's not, I think we all understand that the parents knows their children, they know their children better than anyone and their level where they're at. Just want to make sure we got it covered, what we're doing. It's, we're not missing anything as far as is there something that could be added that we might have missed. And my suggestion is, and as you had mentioned, that it basically go down tonight as a draft. We can think about it to the next meeting. And I know Karen said she wasn't going to be here, but where we went over it, and I'd be fine if she just sent word back and said, hey, I'm good with it.
Well, I have good
You know
and
what I'm
bad
saying?
news. My vacation got canceled, so
Oh.
I'm going to be here.
Okay.
Sorry.
I know.
That's good news, but bad news.
Yeah, it's.
But, you
yeah.
know, I'll open to that, and that way she's not left
Well,
out on it.
It's a first, it could be considered a first step.
Yeah,
Yeah.
first
I mean,
reading, maybe.
If we decide to go with something like
Yeah.
this, it doesn't mean that we can't come back later and say, well, it looks like we
Yeah.
could do something else or something better.
Right, we can modify.
But I think as a first step, I think it's giving the public what they're looking for, is an opportunity.
So to Danny's point, is there anything maybe logistically or technical that we haven't talked about in regard to, you know, this new version of CARD?
We just talked about the basics of it. What I would like to do as part of this process is go back and form a committee of librarians on staff and look at this, make sure that, you know, we understand the process, make a mock-up of an adult application, a juvenile application, and have something for y'all to sort of mark through, add, and then get the process squared away in terms of frontline circulation staff, in terms of IT staff.
Good idea.
And then
Can you
come
have that by
back.
the next meeting?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
It's helpful that Cassie's gonna be back,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to just take this opportunity to thank you for doing, I know how hard it is, and so I know that, I don't want you to feel like you were pressured to like get this stuff to us too sweet like this, because we're extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, and I think this is an important process, an important change that we're making. I think we want to make sure that there's nothing that's missing. And an employee or staff member may see that and be like,
Right.
oh, well, we've done this, but we're missing this part.
But you are pretty confident that the technology can make this
Yes,
happen?
because we're doing similar things
Okay,
already.
great.
Okay, so this will be up for a vote at the next meeting then, with the application, unless we have major changes. But even if we have some changes that are just like housekeeping changes, we can still take a vote on it and get it in place so that we're doing something. Okay. Great. Okay, the next,
We never did finish this one.
oh, yeah, the labeling and signage we were on.
Oh, going backwards.
So we've already agreed that we moved to 13-year-olds for adult supervision.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
And now the question is labeling the sections as what what's appropriate.
It's similar to those drafts, the draft
Right.
signage that we
Yeah.
provided.
And I
Yeah.
thought that, I guess you don't have that with you, but I thought those were good, solid. I mean, you can't provide paragraph after paragraph of
Right.
Right.
things, but I thought they hit the main points.
It's just like how some people on the board weren't really aware of what those age ranges are. It's informing the parents now. Hey,
Right.
this is, if you didn't know, YA is this. And I can see where some parents would not know that, or what juvenile is, or, you know, it gives them a framework.
Yeah.
I'm still confused about that too, so I understand that a parent would understand.
You would like signage.
I would like,
Right.
yes, the age requirements for the
Yeah.
sign.
You can
So,
come out in parentheses and just interpret that on your materials.
So are these, the ones where it says these sections may not align with beliefs of the parents?
I don't think it should be beliefs of the parents. I think it should be more of some materials, and some of this materials in these books might not be, something on the lines of not suitable to parents, but something telling the information that might not be appropriate for everybody. I
We
think
had
it should be
language
directed
similar
more.
to that
Yeah.
on there.
Yes, yeah, it's on the sign.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's actually what I think it said.
yeah.
But it was
I can't remember
suitable.
the
Was it the
exact
word suitable?
Yeah, I think that's what.
And that's the word I did not like, was suitable.
Yeah.
We can I didn't bring it, but we can definitely go back over that.
And you might want to make it brighter, so it stands out a little bit, so people can see it and are aware of it, so the parents that are taking charge of their children understand there might be stuff in that section that they need to be more attuned to.
You could rent one of those neon signs.
Or put a big warning label, warning, things in this room are not appropriate for.
I can't see anything negative by putting descriptions of, definitions of the different sections. I can't see anything negative about that. It's giving parents more information to make decisions by. Maybe coming up with how we describe the sections might be challenging, but having the descriptions makes perfect sense to me. It's just giving parents more.
No, Stephanie, not that I'm trying to put you on the spot, but do you have an actual description of the juvenile and the young adult? Like, because when we talked about the review and the rating, we were kind of like, some of them, you know what I mean? Cross or whatever, and some of the children. Is there a more specific that you go by? Or is that kind of a judgment call?
I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking as far as
Like
what's
juvenile,
appropriate.
is young adult and juvenile the same age?
No.
In terms of.
Where the location-
An age of a child, is that the same age?
Well, meaning like the section of books, like when you said the publisher does like 14 and up,
Yep.
would that go in the juvenile section or would that go in the young adult section?
That would go in young adult,
Because of the 14.
because young adult is
'Cause you go by the
13
younger
to
age.
18.
By your account or by the public? Like what standard do you go by?
Generally by the publisher, and because that's the guideline we have. I mean, it's tricky because you have people that are reading on drastically different reading levels. And then you have parents that are comfortable with different content in those books. So you may have an 11-year-old reading on the reading level of a 16-year-old. So it's for the parent to we just put it in a defined, typically, not always, but defined by a publisher's rating is a good rule for that, of where that goes in the section.
By the lower age range. You always go by the lower age range or grade range.
I mean, I think it would depend. We would look at the publisher's age range as a rule, look at the information that we have and make a decision.
And then
I'm
we
not
can
exactly sure what-
reconsider it if someone says, I don't think this is appropriate.
Right. And
That's-
if somebody thinks it's in the wrong place, then that's the step, bring it to our attention, and we'll look at it
But
again.
I'm saying if I am a parent, I'm walking in with my, say 13, just turned 13-year-old,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm a helicopter mom. What's the age range of the juvenile section and the young adult section? Because we really don't want to go to that section if I don't feel it's appropriate. What age would you tell me?
A 13-year-old?
Like that
I
the
would-
juvenile and the young adult is appropriate?
I
Age
would
range?
tell you young adult,
Not
unless you
juvenile.
have somebody
Okay.
who's reading on a lower level.
That's my decision, not yours.
Right, but I'm telling you where the books are.
And that's what I mean, like you're saying you're gonna label these areas,
Yeah.
but
Young adult would be 13 to adult. Juvenile would be 12 to, I don't know what that age cutoff is, maybe 5, 6? And then you'd go to picture books.
But I thought children area was not juvenile and young adult. I thought the children area, which was 13 and under, was a totally separate section
No.
than juvenile
So,
and young adult.
in this section over here, which is the children's area, is children's and juvenile. The YA section is over here.
And the teenage section.
That's YA.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
And again, if a parent sees a book that they don't want their child to read, that they're going to get noticed, that even if it's in this,
And I understand you, Hap, when you say those things. I do. I completely understand, but I am on the opposite spectrum helicopter mom. Like, I am that parent that you guys don't have to complain about because I'm on it, like Donkey Kong. But if and my problem is us browsing through a section that I don't think he should be in, and we come across a book that I don't find appropriate, and he's looking through it, and we don't even know it's inappropriate until he's opening it, and we're already looking at it, and we already have questions. See, I'm already that helicopter crazy mom that you were
Well, then
saying.
you'll be the mom that can answer his questions that he has.
But
for
why
him.
do I have to?
Because you're his mom.
But why do I have to worry about the book he's coming across? Why can't it be, hey, I'm the mom that wants to find this such a book, and I go to the librarian because I want my child to know this, so I ask the librarian where to find that particular information. Why does someone that doesn't want that have to come across it and turn it away? Why doesn't the one who's looking for it have to ask for it?
If you're at Barnes and Noble, I was just there this weekend, they're all lined up like this. If your son comes to you and asks you a question, are you just gonna say, what are you gonna tell him?
I'm going to tell him that we're not going to Barnes & Noble, we'll go online so I can parent control it.
Well, there you go.
You can't do that in the library.
You can.
But
You
it's
can
not-
definitely go online and look at the books that you want your son to read.
But, so I have to still be over his shoulder while he's looking online, too.
Well, you're the parent.
It's just, it's
I
not
know,
really a book,
but-
it's just gonna be a summary and information about the book.
But I have to have a conversation that I don't want to have because he came across a book, when the person who's actually needs that book and can benefit from that book and actually is looking for that book, why shouldn't they have to find the book instead of my son being innocent and coming across the book? Why is my son have to suffer having questions he would never thought of by just browsing in his section?
I can't get into your parenting. That's not, and to say that someone who wants to read that is not innocent or not making that child, that's the whole point of making it available to everybody, is to not call out the people that you think aren't innocent or that they should have to go look for something.
Okay, you're
Why?
taking that way extreme. I'm
I
talking
don't
about
think I
basic
am.
thing, meaning you're making it sound like it's this huge, like I'm trying to discriminate or something against someone, and I'm not. I don't want my son to have any nudity either. So if there's a butt in a picture and we come across that and I didn't know it, I'd be a little bit offended by that. Yes, because I don't want to find that. That's not discriminating towards someone else who is asking for an education and say, hey, I'm learning the human anatomy. I want to know this book. Can you please show me this book? It shouldn't be placed in the preschool section.
And it's not, right, Stephanie?
Books,
With the butt,
books with the butt.
nudity.
Yes, there are
There
books
is.
with butts in the children's section.
Yeah.
They're very popular books.
It's no David.
But if you want, if there, we do have parents like that, and we love all the types of parents that use the library, but that's where I would say if you are that concerned about a book, let a librarian help you and say, I don't want this, this, and this. This is what we're looking for. They will know immediately. All right, she wants, I think we can get really interesting things for her son or daughter that don't include this, that they will like to read.
I have been here when a librarian when that has come to a librarian. I've been at the counter and they said, that's not for us, and the librarian takes it and goes with them.
Because every person is going to be offended by such a broad spectrum of things. If we exclude those things, it will just be a never-ending, there will be no books, hardly. It's just a really slippery slope, I think, when you start removing books based on single people's opinions. We're a book repository, and we have these books, and we're going to try to make it as easy as possible for the parents to understand what is in this section, and then make it as easy as possible for you to, by the application, say which sections your kids can go in. I think that's what we're trying to do, is make it easier for the parents to parent their children and not make decisions that can impede upon other parents' decisions, if that makes sense.
I don't know how we could have, no matter what, I mean, we all have things we're offended by, right? I'm sure. I don't know how we could curate books in the library to make sure that there isn't anything you might stumble across that upsets you. I'm sure there's things
I'm
that
talking about 13 and under
Well,
kids.
but, right, but what might upset one parent certainly is different for another.
But the book's still available, it's just separated. It's just not in, just mixed in.
But how
That's
do we
all.
decide what is separated?
By the materials section. By putting guidelines to what we call, in the materials section of what we would call juvenile or young adult or children. Right? I mean,
That's your
how we.
purview. Yep, that's within the collection development policy. But they would need to be very specific guidelines. And there may even need to be a reconsideration process that would then, somebody could say, I want this book moved back. I don't know why you put it in this special section.
Okay, so, that being said, the signs. We want the signs put out there with the 13 and under and bright, and we don't want it to say warning because we want it to be welcoming. But bright colored and the rules for the library.
In
I would-
every, I'm sorry, in every section, in 18 and under in every section.
Right, and in the lobby.
Um,
So when they come in,
I would just sort of prefer to have examples of that again, new
Yes.
brighter, for the next meeting, so that you can see what you're voting on.
Okay.
And change
Yeah,
wording.
definitely.
now, oh, that's
As a board.
perfect, that's what I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
And we saw a preview of it at the
Right.
county council, but I think we need to bring it back and take a look.
And also, let me ask you this, the adult section is upstairs?
The adult nonfiction is upstairs, adult fiction is over there, it's downstairs. In a
Because
separate
also
area.
upstairs are like crafting books.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
nonfiction.
That is like a whole, those are in the adult section, are they labeled adult? Because kids will go up there to find, you know what I'm saying? It's like they can be there, those aren't the bad.
Yeah, y'all haven't put in place any restrictions for where a person can go, no
Uh,
matter
and
their
no,
age
we
in the
don't wanna do
library.
that.
You've said your parent has to be with them
Right.
under a certain age.
Okay, good.
So if, like I've said it before, you know, if they're not finding, they need to do a report on Saturday and they're not finding enough books about tigers, I'll tell the parent and the child, you know, if you'll take this number, the same number as it's, and go upstairs, we'll have other books about tigers. It's in a different reading level, but you may find pictures, information, more information you're looking for.
And also, when you go into the children's section, it lists the reading levels on the shelves. I mean, already, I've seen that. It's already says if your child is this reading level, so. Okay, so we're gonna do the signage next month also with the mock-up
Draft,
of the library card
applications.
application.
And I think it'd be helpful for all of us for that, plus the new application, if there's any way we could get it emailed to us, even a day or two in advance, I think would be super helpful
Okay.
than getting it at the board meeting where, you know, so we have time to really look at it before the meeting. So everyone, that makes sense, right?
Yes.
Because it's a lot to read. If possible, I know that's putting a time crunch on you, but if we can.
If we're voting on something,
Yeah.
yes, I would like to have it early.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
You can do it.
Okay, and the last thing we have on here is the reconsideration process.
There we go.
What I did was I took input that I heard, again, from multiple board members. Although I have to say, I wrote a number of these myself, but most of them came from hearing what various board members were saying.
Now, do we have to read these out loud, or were you able to like read these and see what?
Well, I think for the public,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I mean, I don't,
I'll go ahead.
I just so they, shall I just read through it?
I'll just. The reconsideration request policies, A, the petitioner is required to have read the entire book or examined the entire resource. Currently, the current form does ask if that has been done. The items should be considered in their entirety, not solely on portions taken out of context. C, no request will be considered if the principal reason of the request is construed to be based on content related to sexual orientation or preference, gender, race, or religious or political belief. D, no request will be considered that is based on the fact the libraries are publicly funded. E, no request will be considered that is based on the presumption of what ideological, thank you, religious or political opinions or beliefs the majority of the population of Pickens County may hold. F, no request that calls for a special section that limits access to books will be considered. No item in the adult section will be considered by the board unless it patently fails all 3 legs of the Miller test. No book which has previously been reviewed can be subject of such a request unless a vote by the board to do so is unanimous. The number of requests per resident will be limited to 1 title per quarter. The petitioner will be asked to certify that the request originated with and was prepared entirely by them. A maximum of 3 titles will be accepted for reconsideration for any 30-day period. During reconsideration, the item under review will remain available in the library. Materials under review will be posted on the library website along with the specific action that is requested for the material and the status of the review. And M, a petitioner has 15 days to appeal to the board a decision of a request by the director of the libraries. And I would like to add one more, that we also allow reconsideration of a book that's been moved, that maybe it can be placed back in since we're changing, if we change the age sections, such as looking for Alaska.
Some of these suggestions are based on the fact that we get reconsideration requests from multiple reconsideration requests from a few individuals, and I think that unfairly represents the general public.
Population,
Yeah, the general public or the population. So, and it would be a scam if those individuals would then turn around and write a reconsideration request and have somebody else just sign it. We don't want that to happen, so we want them to certify that they're the ones that are actually submitting those reconsideration requests, because that would be scamming the system, I think, under those circumstances.
Okay, so we're just starting with letter A,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, there's so many here, okay. And so right now, people are signing that they've read the book.
Yes.
Okay, so how is this changing that?
Well,
That's just really,
Saying that we want to
I think
keep
it's
that
just
It's a
policy?
clarification.
clear.
Okay,
yeah, I think because
So-
it's a warning. It says that by signing this, you are certifying that you are the one submitting that reconsideration request.
And that you didn't just take a clip out of a website, and that was it.
Or that someone else filed it and you're just signing it.
So-
to get around the.
okay.
So okay, we're just with A, right?
yes. So
Sorry.
A, everyone agrees with A?
This is just a draft, right? We're not voting on this.
No, but this is how we are going to get to the final thing is like.
Right now, the reconsideration form just asks
It just
if they've
asks.
read the book. It doesn't say that they have to have read the book.
And we're saying that they have to have read.
So
So
by
you have to
sign-
change the form by saying have to instead of
Right.
if.
I would I would strike,
The implication would be that
Required.
if they sign it, it means that they've read the book. I
Yeah.
mean, that they're certifying they read the
Yeah.
book. Right now, it just asks.
In
if
its
you have-
entirety.
Pardon?
Right.
In its entirety.
Right.
but you are going to remove required.
No, we're going to add required. They are required to have read the book.
I mean, it's certainly not like that's enforceable, right? I
It's
mean,
not, but
And they're adults, so.
we've had people just take snippets from a website and take it totally out of context what it was in there without because they didn't read the whole books. Excuse me, so in good faith, we're asking them to read the whole book.
Well, also, and there's people that say in their reconsideration form, I only read the first 10 pages. And here's my reconsideration form based on that. They didn't read the book, the entire book.
It doesn't mean that they can't file a reconsideration request based on just sections of the book. That isn't what it is, but it does ask them to read the entire book before they jump off the wagon and ask for a reconsideration. I think that's only fair.
And actually, it says have read the entire book or examined the entire resource. So there's an or in there.
I think that we just need to clarify it.
Okay, move on to B, everyone.
Mm.
Okay, so we're gonna keep that. And then this one kind of goes with that, the fact that they've read the entire book, that the item should be considered in their entirety and not solely on portions taken out of context.
Does that mean they shouldn't, even if they read the whole book, if their reconsideration is just because of a portion of it, they can't reconsider it for the portion?
No, I think you'd be able to do that. You might, right? I mean, you might love the whole book, but there's a section you disapprove of, and you can base your reconsideration just on that, right? I think that's what we're saying, aren't we? Yeah.
But does that even need to be in there if you're making A, B, that they require to read the whole book?
No, we can take it up. We can draw a line through this one and say no.
I mean, if you've changed it to required to read the whole book, isn't that, they already read it? They're
No.
just having a problem with a portion of it?
Yeah,
That's true.
I wouldn't object to scratching B because it gets, I mean, that's the hope. That's just the hope. that
Well, you don't want to
people-
censor the public, so.
But
Well, I think it also, it sort of reflects that Miller test, and it reflects the language of the law, which says the book has to be examined in its entirety. I think that's sort of where
that's where that
it's
came
coming from.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, but it would be asking a lot.
Yeah, I'd scratch B. I
evaluate
suggest.
that, I
I
think,
suggest
so.
scratching B.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll scratch B.
I put an X on it already.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And this is an aside, but in terms of board responsibility, is that part of this, for example, that we should be required to read the books that are under reconsideration as well, or is that,
Aren't
will
we
that be
supposed
part
to?
of this, or is that somewhere separate that,
I thought we had
Did
to.
we?
I don't.
To vote on it.
Didn't we say in order to vote?
Vote.
I thought
we
you
had to, yeah.
have
Okay.
read?
Okay, I stand corrected.
Well,
I mean,
don't
wasn't
know
that
if it's
just said? I don't know if
written
it's written down
but
anywhere.
That's what I meant. Is
It
it
was just
written?
discussed. It's
So it's
not
not-
in a
okay.
policy anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
it's
it-
not in our policy. Okay,
that
man, that's
may
maybe
need
for
to
another
be
discussion.
Added.
Okay.
At some
I do
point.
think that will need to be added, because how can anyone make an informed decision if they don't read the book?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
You can't make a decision on.
besides, if we have to read the book, they should have read it.
That's right.
That was my opinion too.
Okay, no request will be considered if the principal reason for the request is construed to be based on content related to sexual orientation or preference, gender, race, or religious or political belief.
Now, what I see on that is when, this whole thing we've been battling is vulgarity, or the vulgarity of the children's section, the pictures, et cetera, that is obscene. See, that's the whole reason here. You could say in the adult section, or I don't know, but however, but see, that's the problem they're having now, is the sexual content of it. It's not the
This-
sexual Now, you're saying sexual orientation,
Or preference.
okay,
This does not,
The
this is
sexuality,
not
okay.
directed at sexual content. This is directed at
that's the,
discriminating
Of
a book
sexual
based
orientation.
on a person's.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Wanted to make-
that's-
yeah,
this-
gotcha.
This is not directed at sexual
Okay.
content. This is directed at discrimination against groups
Okay,
that we want to avoid, including
Yeah.
those sexual orientation or preference and so
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
That's all it is.
So
I mean, it's
if
just,
you,
I'm good with it.
you can't throw a book out just because there's a homosexual in it.
Right, yeah.
That reconsideration, we will not consider.
Mhm.
If you come to us and say, I don't like this book because it's about Republicans,
Mhm.
we're not going to throw that book out of the library. I mean, we're not even going to reconsider that.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
And Danny, you're good with that one? To keep that in?
Yep.
Okay. Everybody else? I'm going to take that as a yes since I heard no. No, no request will be considered that is based on the fact that the libraries are publicly funded.
We hear this all the time from people making, I'm a taxpayer, therefore I object to this book as a taxpayer, and so it should be removed from the library because I'm paying taxes that are supporting the library. Everybody else is paying taxes.
But that's not the reason why they're,
No, but it
They're-
is listed, often listed in the reconsideration request. I am a
just by itself?
Yes.
Yeah,
No
Well,
other reason?
Not by itself, but
that's
it's just a warning that this is not an excuse. This is a warning that because the library is publicly funded, you, and you're a taxpayer, doesn't mean you have the right to remove a book.
But what if
Just
they
because you
put,
don't like the book.
but what if they put in that there were consideration because of the context of the book, and I feel I have a right because I'm a taxpayer?
I think whether, the fact you're a taxpayer is irrelevant, but, we're all taxpayers, but.
you're saying if it's their primary,
But I mean, if those
Reason.
words are in the reconsideration, we won't reconsider it, we won't consider it, or if they just put it as a single reason?
It's kind of like a shot across the bow. It's a warning. If it is the principal reason that they're doing it, I think we don't.
But it is
undertake-
publicly funded.
Yeah.
And
I
don't
mean,
they
if
have a
they
right
have-
to complain?
Pardon?
They have a right to complain,
But not remove it from the library is what he's
but
saying.
we haven't voted on it, so it's just being reconsideration. It isn't being removed every reconsideration is not removed. It's just a community member that is complaining about something they feel that needs to be discussed, correct?
this is a tough one. I'm sort of, I don't know. I could argue either side on this. I see what you're saying. I see what Hap is saying. And I'm assuming most reconsiderations, if they include this, there are other reasons in addition
Yeah.
to that, right?
I mean, that's the hope.
Yeah. So I don't know if it necessarily needs to be in there because there's usually other reasons anyway. That's just my thought.
So,
Well, I
what
guess,
if the word solely, no request will be considered that is solely
Yeah, well, you can do that.
on the fact?
Yeah.
Solely based?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think we'll see those, but.
I don't either.
it won't.
Yeah.
I don't either.
I'm a
but-
taxpayer. Get rid of those
Right.
books.
It's probably not gonna.
I guess
All
it's,
the books.
I guess
Yeah,
it's a
that's-
I don't want to pay that.
I don't want to pay for any book. Yeah,
I
that's not
guess
gonna
it's a
happen.
pet peeve of mine to hear.
Yeah, I know,
This is
but
more of a pet peeve. We don't have to.
we
put this in
just
the
need to be
policy.
reminded, I guess. from time to time.
Especially when
Who
people
we
come in
serve.
and say, I pay your salary.
Yeah, that's right. I'd like you to pay my salary.
I know, me too.
I'm gonna suggest we scratch that one.
Okay.
Or not add solely, or just scratch it.
Scratch it.
I'm fine with
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
People aren't going to just base it on
No,
that. Okay. All right.
Okay, E, no request will be considered that is based on the presumption of what
Ideological.
religious or political opinions or beliefs the majority of the population of Pickens County may hold.
Didn't you just do that in C? Or in,
This is another pet peeve of mine, I have to admit. People have reconsideration requests where they say, Pickens County is extremely conservative, or Pickens County is
But that's their opinion.
Christian, or
That's their opinion. I mean, it's their reconsideration, it's their opinion. They can say that in the
But
reconsideration.
we shouldn't take those things under consideration. As an objective board, we can't say, well, Pickens County is a conservative county, so we should change what the content of the library is. We can't do that.
I think these things maybe, like this one and the one before, would go sort of in a, not as in terms of if you can file a reconsideration or not, but just to say during the decision-making process,
That's right.
we will
That's
not
true.
consider that the library is publicly funded and that's part of its use. It will have no bearing on our decision.
decision. Right.
If you think that the majority of the county is conservative or whatever, that will have no bearing on the decision.
I agree.
think
I think you
that's-
should,
I
if your
think-
opinion is that, I think
Yeah.
it's totally fine to put that in the reconsideration.
I like that idea, yeah,
Okay, good job, Stephanie.
yeah. And that may
Okay,
apply to some
cross
people.
that one out.
But that's Stephanie's bearing on it, right? I mean, because she does the original,
She's saying that this will have no
Reconsideration.
bearing on- Right.
and then if they appeal it, that's the only time it comes to us. So this actually is her stated, you know, that's her, that has
Because-
no bearing on it.
Well, because we're supposed to remain neutral, and we're not supposed to be conservative, Democrat, independent, Baptist, Catholic, Jewish.
Yeah,
We're
but
neutral.
I think
this
it would go for
is a
both.
restriction on the person running the reconsideration.
Yeah, and I would think it would go for both as part of my decision-making process and the board's. I think they should be consistent in that it's not gonna have any bearing on my decision, the fact that you say that you're a taxpayer or that your political, whatever this says, religious or political opinions of the majority. If you put it in there, I think it has to be consistent across the board with what my decision's based on and what the appeal is based on.
Right, they should run together.
Doesn't C already says that, right? No gender, race, or religious or political
Well,
belief.
that's if a request, a reconsideration request would be considered. These other things, I was saying, I think it would be better to say during the process of reconsideration, these other things would take hold. That first one is if we will even consider it, period. Or we will say, I'm sorry, we're not going to consider this based on these reasons.
Yeah, so we can have a preamble, basically,
Right.
that includes the objectivity of the board, is
Right.
basically what these are.
Right. So you can put in your reconsideration request, I'm a taxpayer, I don't want this book in the library, but as we're discussing the book, we're not going to consider that
Right.
because we all pay taxes. So
Right.
that makes sense to me.
Which doesn't prevent someone standing up and screaming that they're a taxpayer and that they have a right to.
Right,
you know.
or putting it in the
I
request.
mean, that's fine, I mean, but it's
Yeah.
not part of our decision-making. Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so that section, number E, or letter E, is going to be put into like a preamble, like Hap said.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
actually, all those.
All the rest of them?
Well, no,
Okay.
with the taxpayer thing, I
D
mean,
and E.
those
Right.
Oh,
things.
D and E, okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
those things,
okay.
okay.
F, no request that calls for a special section that limits access to books will be considered.
does that not violate some sort of law anyway?
Depends on what you're putting in that section.
Okay,
It's just segregating a section of books for a reason. The reason you're doing that could
Uh-huh.
be a problem.
Couldn't we be more specific on that and make it not, this is for reconsideration policies, so make it clear on the form that the section that you are asking to move it to has to be a legitimate,
Has to exist.
has to exist, yeah, something
Oh.
like that, so that,
Because it could come up here into C.
Mm-hmm.
People could do that.
but if they're asking us to vote whether to put it in a special section and there is no section, then we can't, that automatically disqualifies us. We're going to vote no because we
Right,
can't do
right.
that.
Right,
Right.
Which just happened.
So,
Right.
yeah.
That's basically.
so it's more on the form, be very specific on what
What you want
location you would
happen,
like
yeah.
to be, have this book be moved.
Yep, you're right.
And some of these comments here, these have come because in reading the reconsideration request, I see these things showing up over and over again, and
That's
they're,
because they're coming from the same person.
well,
So they just repeat. Okay, so, like, we're gonna say, like Elise said, we'll just say, we won't consider it if the section doesn't exist.
right.
Or be specific on what section you would like this book to be moved to.
Be very
Okay.
specific.
So they can't say they want it to be moved to Mars,
Right.
because we don't have the capability of doing that.
I'm going to inject
Okay.
something here in light of the last couple of, we looked at, we talked about, I believe, E and F, and, well, where, we need to, I keep going back to this. And y'all do, you'll know this too. We serve the community. And for us to try to limit or restrict their speech on how they word a reconsideration, or we say, and I know how, I know what, in this light, but yeah, there's things that upset us, but people get upset and they express themselves. And seems like we're trying to limit them from things that bug us when we're serving the community, and we need to be listening to them. I understand they can say some harsh things. I've had over the years harsh things said to me from other people from where I stand. But we got to take in consideration, we're saying, okay, we can't be, liberal, we can't be conservative, but sometimes the way we express things or put things in policy, it lets us know if we're liberal or conservative. It kind of reflects that. So this is community thing. I don't want to put too many restrictions on somebody that wants to reconsider a book. Doesn't matter where it's coming from, and what you're going to find me doing when I do see one come through and they say such book, they email me or they email all of us. I like to say thank you for you have an interest in the library and that you have a concern, and it's not saying I agree with it, but I appreciate them because they're part of our community, just being, trying to be impartial.
I would agree with that if it hadn't already been put out to the public that the reason for these reconsiderations is to inundate the staff and get them so busy with reconsiderations that that's all they have time to do. And that's been publicly said. And so their true reason for reconsiderations are kind of not for what they're saying. It's because they have an agenda, and they've come out and they've said it. So I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said.
Yeah, but if they
careful.
put in there that they have to read the book entirely and they're signing their name to it, then you're making them legitimately have to read the book.
I'd be careful not to profile
'Cause you-
either group.
I'm not profiling either group.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what has been publicly
There's always a
said.
few, you've got a few in every group that's
I
very
agree.
vocal and they
But
really
we're
say
just
harsh
trying to
things,
get
but at the same time.
Legitimate reasons to reconsider a book,
Yeah.
not to just do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah,
And I
But that's someone's
agree with you,
opinion,
but
like-
we've removed a lot of them.
yeah,
I was
we
gonna
have,
say,
yeah,
we-
so I just, as we
We
go
haven't
through.
removed them, we've
We
moved
just-
them.
Move them, yes.
This is, we go through that, I'm just keep this in mind,
Right,
okay,
right.
Right. I don't want to limit people's ability to complain, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, that's
what
part
we're
of
here
it.
for, to serve.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
And to listen.
But we don't want frivolous reconsiderations either, right? So I'm with you. I get it.
Well, when you get those, you just toss them.
I don't think it's very restrictive to suggest that we won't consider creating a new section in the library
No.
because somebody
Right.
files I don't find that very restrictive. And I mean, they can still ask for it, but.
Yeah, they could request, but yeah,
But it
if they
doesn't.
felt like we needed
And
it. yeah.
this may be a thing that goes in the preamble as well, which says that.
Yeah.
the
I think a
board-
lot of it could be just done in the preamble.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and the issue with G is that, I'm not a lawyer. That's super complicated, and I would not know how to address that.
Right.
What,
I think,
you know.
I think some of the ones that are coming are actually more would be more policy,
okay.
like.
And I think with G, I mean, what we had talked about, or some of y'all talked about before, is not looking at adult books whatsoever.
Agreed.
This gives a way to look at some of the adult books. I don't see how a book would ever end up on the shelf that failed every part of the Miller test. I don't see that. But if somehow it did, it would give you the authority to remove
Yes.
it.
But that, you gotta we say last meeting that there might be a book in the adult section that someone wants to move back to the young adult section? That they can do that as a reconsideration, as a moving too? So we would have to consider that as an adult book.
Well,
That's because we were going to change the ages. Yes, that's what I had said that. Like
Okay.
if we were going to change the ages of like juvenile section or young adult section and raise the age, then because we said that 13 might be too young for someone to read,
Yeah,
looking
then
for
you couldn't-
Alaska.
Then you couldn't really do that if you're gonna be going both ways.
back, okay.
If you're gonna use a reconsideration, I think that's your idea, to move a book back, or then, yeah, you couldn't do that.
If the ages changed,
Yeah, I see the point, and.
that was where I was thinking of
Okay.
that.
Well, this may need to be rephrased then, under the circumstances.
Well, we
where-
could just take that out and just say we will not consider anything in the adult section. Is that,
That's still not gonna.
No, that wouldn't solve that
yeah.
problem.
If there was a book in the adult section that someone is saying that should not be in the adult section, and they want it placed in the juvenile section, they have the right to reconsider that book.
Not right now,
Right.
but that's.
But no, I mean,
that's-
but that's what I mean, like,
Yeah,
they
that's the
do
way
have
y'all
the
are
right to read.
trending.
And if we put that is, we don't consider any adult sections, then that means
Right.
we
Yeah.
wouldn't even consider that.
Yeah.
I think the solution, really what this is getting at would be removal of the book from the library, so we can rephrase it, because there is no other section to move it, higher
Right.
section to move it to.
Right.
Well,
What I was getting at was that we would not
Yeah, but if we
consider-
moved like gender
removing
queer, we
of-
just moved that.
Pardon?
We just moved gender queer. And it deserves to be in the adult section. We know it's in the adult section. But what if, like, a year from now, someone wants it moved from the adult section down? We don't consider that at all?
So what I would do is rephrase this.
I'm just, not, that's just a recent vote.
Yes, and I understand your point, and I think it's well taken. So this, can rephrase this, so it refers only to removing books from the library at this point. So no book in the adult section can be removed from the library unless it patently fails all three legs of the Miller test. Removed from the
So-
library.
But that means we'd
Take
still
out-
have to consider adult books, right? Any reconsideration for adult books that are in the
Yeah.
adult section?
You would if they would want to move them down or move
But
them
not-
somewhere, but if
If
you get
they're
a
questioning where it's at,
if you
located.
get a reconsideration form that says this is an adult book, Mom A, for instance,
Yeah.
I want it removed.
Okay.
That would be like, we're not considering that's an adult
Okay.
book,
Okay.
and we're not, it's an adult book.
Unless it fails.
Unless it fails the Miller test, which,
Completely fails the Miller. So that's really the essence of that. So
okay, so we're going to say removed from
Yeah, and I can rephrase that.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, just want to make sure, because I've been made aware there's a book, maybe Stephanie can answer this. Johnny the Walrus is clearly a book written for children by Matt Walsh. And the question was placed, why is it in the adult section of the library?
It's in the adult section because we put it, like many other libraries, it's political satire. And if you read the book, I think you'll understand why. It can go in either, but to me, because we looked at this book, it fit in political satire. I didn't think it was written for children in mind.
It's a picture book,
It is.
but I thought
You can have a
books
picture book
always
that's
go in
political
it because no
satire.
adult would want to read it.
But that was.
I mean, that's what you said
She-
before, that's why I asked. Because when drama, it was a picture book, and when I was saying something against that, you said no adult would want to read a picture book.
I don't remember ever saying that. I have friends, I love graphic novels, and I have friends that, artists who create graphic novels.
well, has anyone put in a reconsideration for that book? I mean, maybe that's not for us to discuss tonight until we've all read it, and if somebody
No.
puts in a request
Which
for
one?
No.
that book, if maybe
Yeah,
somebody
you were just
needs,
giving an
maybe
example.
somebody,
Yeah.
yeah,
Susan,
so
what
maybe
were you
somebody
gonna
needs to
say?
do that, if,
Well,
I
I
can
was
do an
just
example.
gonna
Yeah.
say that, the like, sometimes it doesn't come to us. Sometimes, like, the librarians take care of that book because they removed it before anything and put it in the adult section. So sometimes it doesn't always come to us. They
Well,
made
it
the
wouldn't even
Well, it
come to us
was-
because there's no reconsideration written for it.
It was
either.
based solely on.
It was based solely on
Herman
that.
Staff's
on
decision
Exactly.
to put that to the adult
And that happens a
section.
lot. If you have a book that could go in two places, we make a decision on where it goes.
Yeah.
And that book, I made that decision, because to me, I don't know if you've read the book, or anybody's read the book, but it was not really written for children. It was a commentary that it was based on political, social views of somebody, and it was created as a children's book, but it was not for children. There are other books that I could show you as examples. They put them in a children's book, but it's
Yeah.
actually for adults. It's a
Now-
commentary on something.
We're leaving it to the parents to be the deciding factor of their children, what they can read. Okay? And instead of you saying, children will be seeing this book, reading this, book, even though it's a children's book, we're gonna put it in the adult section. It's kind of contradicting what,
But that's what they get
That's
paid
been
to
said.
decide. That's what their degrees are in, so
do what?
that's what their degrees are, that's their
I
education
understand
to
that,
know
but,
that.
but the board's responsible for a lot of this stuff that when things like this come to our attention, we need to properly.
But that person that's
with
texting
it.
you right now with that, they need to fill out a reconsideration form then and ask
Yeah.
it to be put in the children's section.
If
Yeah.
that's what they want.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that was just an example of
Yeah, I was
what
just
he's trying to
example,
say,
'cause I
is there's an adult.
I hadn't read the book, I'm talking about how
In
about
the
it
adult
being,
section, that's all, it was just an example.
if we can't move, something from the adult back to the children's or whatever, and if you come up with something that needs to be. But I think Hap, you was ready to go in that direction, that it'd be left open and reconsidered to move something out of the adult.
No, that was me.
Oh, okay.
That was my thinking because of looking for Alaska, because when we were talking about moving the age of the group, of the sections, it was mentioned that looking for Alaska, maybe it should be for just one step up of the age group. So it was taken out of where it was and put in the adult section because of that. So I was saying, if we're going to raise the section for like young adults, if we're gonna raise the age limit, then that, potentially, that could be, they're ready to read that. Because if we're gonna decide who's ready to read it. But, because that was clearly written for teenagers, but we moved it to the adult section. And that was me, that was why I said, maybe we can reconsider to move it back, because I know afterwards that teenagers came up to me and said, I'm so sad that you did that, because a teenager, this book was written for
I
teenagers.
think you're both saying the same thing. Aren't you both saying that you want the opportunity, if it's in the adult section, to move it back? Aren't you both saying
But
that?
I was only saying that if, but I was only saying
Okay.
that if we change the age.
Right,
Right.
but I understand
Yeah.
that. But still, we're saying we want the opportunity to be able to move it back,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I just didn't want it to be shut down and we
Yeah.
couldn't do anything about a
No,
book.
but
and-
now
Right.
we changed that
Yeah,
to say
okay.
we will not consider any adult to be removed from the library.
So, looking for Alaska, we would, it clearly would not fail the Miller test. And so it would,
Yeah, but we voted on it. I mean, that's done and said. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I
Well-
mean, let's go to the next section.
That's why,
so we wouldn't remove it. I mean, because anyway, I think we're beating that.
okay.
Let's move on.
I just wanted to get that out there, that was, I'm taking responsibility. I'm the one who said that. Just so everyone knows.
Make a note.
Okay.
Make a note,
on the
Lori
record.
Lori said
Osborne,
it.
no E, said it.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one we're on, so we're gonna just say that no item will be considered to remove from the library from the adult section, from the library.
Why do we have to
Family
say adult
fails.
section, just not removed? I mean, it's no, because some of them are asking for children's books to be removed from the library also, are they not?
That we can do. We can say.
Because
that.
there's no other section. I mean, that's the highest we can go, right, is the
Right.
adult section?
Right.
Unless, because we're not allowed to do anything else, right?
Right.
So you wanna say that no item,
I don't even think that needs to be in there. I think if you, why even list it? Because right now, we're saying reconsiderations can be back and forth, so, isn't that still,
I think we're getting reconsiderations for adult books, and a lot of y'all were saying, why are we reconsidering adult books? Adults can make decisions on what they
if
want to
it's
read.
in the adult section, right?
Right, if it's in an adult book in the adult section, they can make their own decisions. He's saying that this would cut down on all of these reconsiderations for adult books in the adult section that adults are making the decision to check out by saying, if you want this book removed, we're not going to consider removing it unless it fails the Miller test.
But then we'd still have to read it, right?
No, it wouldn't be reconsidered if you were asking for an adult book to be removed.
Unless it fails the Miller
Unless.
test.
Oh.
And how will we know if it fails the Miller test unless you read it? I cannot imagine there's any book in the adult section that does.
No, and I
but-
can't imagine there ever would be, but, you know, yeah.
Is,
okay, so we're just gonna say, no item in the adult section will be considered to be removed from the library. Because some people have said you need to remove this from the library. Is that,
yeah, we can take out failing all three legs of the Miller test because the librarians are,
right,
I just put that in there as.
to make it difficult.
Make it, to make it complete, legally complete, but in principle, the librarians are not putting
I thought we scratched G,
books
but
in the
maybe
adult
not.
section
We
that would
did.
fail all three.
Right.
I
I
think
mean,
G,
by
that's what we're
definition,
talking
they're
That's
about.
not
what we're
putting.
on now.
talking
Yeah,
about
we're
G.
going back and forth on
No.
that. Yes.
Okay.
So, anyway,
Okay, so let's final this one. No item shall be in the adult section will be considered for removal
by the board,
by the board,
period. Okay.
period. Okay. H, no book which has previously been reviewed can be the subject of such a request unless a vote by the board to do so is unanimous.
And I think we've already agreed to this.
No. I'd strike
don't
it
agree
and
with
say
that.
majority.
Yeah, majority, not unanimous.
Oh,
I don't-
majority.
And I think we
Yeah.
should put a time limit on it.
Okay, majority, all right. I don't remember what we agreed to.
Yeah, unanimous is impossible.
But I think we should put a time limit on these like if we have a reconsideration we already voted on, it's already been brought to our attention, maybe give it 6 months before another reconsideration, because we've already voted on it. So
Yeah.
we need a time frame so we don't repeat
Again.
a same vote
Right. So
or a
that's
different vote.
the
But
tricky-
not, I mean, you still want, I don't think you should put 5 years on there or nothing like that.
6 months is too short, 5 years is too long. So somewhere in between. I don't think we want to read the same book twice in 1 year. That doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Well, what you may want to consider on that is a year's span, maybe, because board members can change.
Right.
Well, this would cover that, instead of putting a,
Year on
if a
it.
reconsideration comes, if it's 1 month later, if the board said, we got a reconsideration of this book, but we made a decision on it a month ago, what's the pleasure of the board? And we just vote,
Right.
yeah, we
You're
don't
right.
have to,
We would just vote. We don't have to set a
Not
time
to-
frame, we can just vote. Right?
we just did that,
Yeah.
and just let each book, as it comes back.
Yeah, I
board-
understand what she's saying,
the
though. You
board
may be
decide.
doing that every single month for the same books. Every single month, they'll bring this one book back over and over and over.
Well, maybe we should do it for, I mean, we're also talking about how many, eventually, how many we're going to be books we're going to be reconsidering in a month, right? Like we're trying to, how many each month at the meeting?
I think it's
So if
more-
we do 6 months, then that is that's 6 meetings that we'll have, that we've already decided. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the time frame should be, but if we just did it, and we're being live streamed, and we voted, and then a reconsideration comes in for next month, and we're voting again on that same book, that takes away from that's just a repetition of the same book when there's other books we got to get to, too.
Right.
That's the only thing I was thinking, is if they keep repeating.
And it may
that might
not
be a
just be
problem.
1, it may be 5, it may be 10. It's a book that somebody really has a problem with. It's as easy as them copying that form and doing it over and over. I'm just saying.
Right, so maybe 1 year,
But if it comes up to, as a vote,
but we still have to vote
we can
every
just
time it came up.
cut it off and
It's
say, we just
taking
did
up-
this.
We've got 5 books we looked at last month, 2 months ago. What's the pleasure of the board? Do we reconsider it or not? So that's quick.
I don't know, I would vote for putting some time frame on it, because we have so much to do, that this
Yes.
is just taking up time. I understand what you're saying, but I also understand if we're taking up.
Well, let's go 6 months.
Or- I like a year, but that's just, I can be outvoted.
I like a year,
A year.
but no, let's take,
That's just my
No, I
opinion,
mean-
I like a year.
Just
And-
can we just kind of just put there on a question on time restraint? Like, just put a question mark, and then we at least put it on the draft, and then we can make a final
Right,
decision
like
later.
6 months or a
Okay.
year.
And
About that.
and just to clarify, it wouldn't be that they submit this request and I hold it for that year. They have to wait a year and then submit their request again.
And it has to be
It is
public,
on the
like,
person-
in the
on
policy,
the
so they
person.
know, too.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So the public knows.
Okay, okay.
Redraft that.
okay. I, the number of requests per resident will be limited to 1 title per quarter. The petitioner will be asked to certify that the request originated with and was prepared entirely by them. That kind of goes with A, the second part of that. So let's cross that up, because that goes with A.
I'll move it to A, to make sure it's clear.
And then the number of requests will be limited to 1 title per quarter. What do y'all think?
Okay.
I don't think we should put any time restraints on how many times someone wants to request a reconsideration. I mean, it's the public, it's their opinion. They have a right to say something.
Is there any way we could, and I agree, is there any way we could put in some kind of language based on a board vote if it seems excessive, or some sort of language like that? If the same person is, putting in 20 reconsiderations a month or something,
For different books?
Something, yes, something like
But
that.
why can't they, if they've
Well,
read
if-
them all?
Well,
If you look at
okay.
the next one, a maximum of 3 titles will be accepted for reconsideration for any 30-day period. We could put something in there that says preference will be given to new petitioners. So,
I don't like that.
so in other words, if someone who has not petitioned before, they would give a preference over someone who repeatedly submits
it should be
possibility.
based on the order we receive them. That seems the
Yeah, I
fairest
don't think-
thing.
I mean, I do understand what he's getting at, and it's not a secret that people have published on public sites that this is being used to bog down everything. My time, my staff's time, the board's time. I think there has to be some restriction, and you have to really think about what books are really bothersome, and you just can't do 50 reconsiderations a month. It's just getting to the point where it's not sustainable for me the list is getting longer and longer, and if there's one copy of this book, it takes us
Yes.
forever to read it, and it's an adult book, or it's whatever. It takes us forever to read and research these books, and I hate the fact that they're having to wait this long for the decisions, but it's just,
And we all have to read it too. which
Yeah.
takes time.
Yes.
I mean,
if they
I-
appeal it,
Right,
yeah.
right.
But
Well-
it takes a long time for us to even get to it.
No more adult books will be considered.
Well, that will help a
No.
little bit.
That's not,
Yeah, we done covered that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, so we don't need to.
They can be considered, if it needs to be moved out, there's a
Right.
book, you know,
Move down,
Right.
but not
moved
out.
down.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
moved down, yeah.
That will
Right.
free up some time.
Right,
And
But-
so far, it's not been, well, I mean, it's not a burden on me to ask me to read a book, right? I'm very
Right.
happy to read a book, but so far, the number of books is not excessive. But if it became, reading 10 books a month, I mean, we all have lives, we can't.
Yeah, but we work for the public. So if the public has a
we
problem
don't
with
work,
it,
we're volunteers for the public.
we are,
Well, I mean, we could change the.
but if there's a
the
problem,
number-
just because we don't agree with their assumption or their thoughts on that book does not mean we don't take that in consideration anyway. We have to. I mean, anybody all of them. I mean, all the reconsiderations. I don't think we should put any restrictions on as many as go in, as long as I think we should consider all of them.
If you do that, then it's gonna take us 10 years. I mean, staff is having to review these books, and we do it on the clock. So those hours of reading those books, we're not writing grants.
Yeah,
We're
but
not
the people
doing
who are writing the
programs.
reconsiderations are also putting time and effort into that too, by reading the entire book and by putting their
That's
thoughts
fine.
on paper, and
If-
they really feel passionate about this,
If you
so they
want to
want to
pay
submit it.
staff to go through these reconsiderations instead of doing our jobs, we will do it. We will do what the board wants. I don't think that's why we were hired. I don't think that's what we were hired to do.
But
is
if the
just
board
read books
wants
and
it,
do-
And
Yeah,
we
we'll
vote
do
that
it.
way, then
But there's going to be other things that we can't do anymore because of it.
I think,
I think we need to put a reasonable limit on
right.
this.
I don't want to restrict people from being able to reconsider books. That's their right. I'm totally fine with that. What I'm suggesting is somehow we have some sort of parameter so that we are not inundated and have to read 20 books per month, right? So I want people to be able to reconsider, but it will take time for us to, right? I am going to read in entirety every book that I'm asked to read. I'm not going to read paragraphs, sections.
don't you
so
think some of these will be repetition too?
Maybe.
And if we put a 6-month limit on it, then that would eliminate some of the other,
I mean, of
For the
all the books
repeats.
that we've had, we've only had 2 that are repetition. I mean, we just got 4 new reconsiderations, and we haven't even caught up on. I mean, I don't feel good about where we're at with getting these people answers, but there's just not enough time to do it. And I think if you don't want to put some sort of parameters on the number, then you just have to have the understanding that we're going to do the best we can to get them done, but it's going to take a while.
And maybe that's what we need to tell the public, is that we will get to them in the order received, and it might take,
and every one of you are important, and we're putting a lot of thought and effort into each reconsideration, so the time frame might be longer than expected.
right? I think people have to just be aware of that it might take a while for us to get to their book. And I think as a board, I think we could come up with some, I would like some limit as to how many we would be required to read before each board meeting. Right? That's what I'm saying. I want everyone
No
to.
10 before.
Right, right. I want everyone to be able to reconsider a book if they want to, based on the parameters we've set. But certainly a limit for us, I want to be able to do my due diligence and read in entirety the book.
And you have to be aware that they only come to you if they're appealed.
Right.
So we could get 100
Yeah.
and 20 could come to you.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, your numbers and our numbers.
Are
Will
very
be
different.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, but I don't know how to fix that.
Have we talked with any other libraries? Do they put any type of restrictions?
Yes, some do.
And-
They put it based on what they think that they can accomplish and still do their job and really review and have a meaningful report on it.
No, you don't have to, once you've received a reconsideration about one book, and if you get it again, then what's your process?
What do you think is a reasonable number in a quarter or a month that,
That we're accepting from the same person?
Yeah, but she's still, whoever it is still part of the community. They still are having a problem. We can't just disregard them. That's like, isn't that discrimination?
It's not if you say that your point is to overwhelm the library staff.
But that's your opinion.
No,
Meaning,
that's a
I'm sure she
statement.
said it, but it doesn't make it less, she still have, or he, or whoever it is.
You know
is
who
still-
it is, so you can.
Yeah, but
say
it could
she.
be on the other side too.
I
Like,
know, but it's not, when we're
But it
talking
could
this,
be, and we're
it
part of
could
the
be.
community, and we're advocating for the community,
but we
so.
know in this
Right now,
situation it's
you're
not.
talking about a certain situation, but 6 months from now could be a different situation. Doesn't make this or anybody's request any less important.
I see your point, and it's just that, is this feasible? And you just, and if you want them, whoever, to be able to file all these reconsiderations, you have to understand that it may be years before we get to their reconsideration. I mean, I
Well,
haven't
isn't-
had a chance in the last few months, because I've been doing 4 jobs,
Yes.
to look at any books.
But you're fully staffed now, right? Is it possible
Almost.
to maybe get a few people that are to read, because you said you get the staff's opinion too, correct? Is it possible to maybe designate like 2 or 3 people to do that?
I think the
And
other
then come to
part-
you with this, or something like that? Like, you know
That's
what I
what
mean?
we do now, but it's one, if we have one book.
That's what I was gonna say. I think the other part of this is the number of books that are that title. And one of the things that these people are asking for reconsiderations is they don't want that book, period. So they sure don't want more copies bought by the taxpayer money of that same book, just to be for reconsideration.
So if it's reconsidered, do you need to buy more books in order to speed up the process?
That would be helpful.
That would be not good.
And see, that's what I'm talking about.
And we've tried to respect that. If a book's under reconsideration, it seems strange to order 4
Order
copies
more of a
it.
book that nobody, that these people don't want to begin with. So why, and it's the taxpayer money, so why are you having to buy more just to satisfy the reconsideration? What do you do with it then?
My suggestion would be set, like Hap said, a reasonable number. And if we get to more, we get more. If we don't, we're working within the guidelines of that reasonable number, that we can be efficient in the decisions of the book and just work through it and let them know, hey, we're working through it. I believe Karen said it. We're working through it. We'll get to it when we can, but, it's just reasonable.
That's for the board and library staff too, right?
Yeah, like we're the
Right.
first, so,
I know.
yeah.
So I think we just need to be clear that, and I think you said
This
this.
is gonna
like
take
you're-
time.
Yeah.
But
And I
there-
hate hearing that we're dragging our feet. We're not. We
Oh.
want
Yeah.
these to be
Yeah.
done. We want to move
But
on,
if it's
we
written,
just
if it's in
can't.
writing and saying, hey, this is our policy, we
Right.
are considering all, but it's gonna take a process.
Yeah.
If they know it and it's in writing that it's that way, I think it would be less of a,
Yeah.
you're dragging your feet kind of thing.
that's the point. And personally, most of the books that I'm reading now, I would prefer not to read.
Yes?
I mean, most of them are not interesting to me. Most of them are, I have other things I would rather read. I think the board has to decide also how many books can you read in addition to the other things in your life that you want to read or have to read. And I think 3 books in a month is about my capacity and my patience. So 3 titles in a month is probably not an unreasonable
No,
number to
no,
approach.
I agree with
No,
that.
especially if it's the.
And so that's a
Right.
maximum of
They're
3
young adult
titles
books.
will be accepted.
That to
for
bring to us,
reconsideration.
Yeah.
that's for us, okay.
I think that's reasonable.
I can do that.
Well, no, for reconsideration, that would be to Stephanie, because we only get it if it's been appealed.
Right.
Well,
He's talking about as far as you all
Yes.
I'm
go.
talking
For
about the
us.
Three
For
a
a
month.
meeting, every
Yes.
month
To be
meeting,
prepared for a
the
meeting.
maximum book would be
Reconsideration.
3 at each meeting that we would reconsider or vote on.
But we don't even have enough books sometimes for all of us to read them,
well, and that's,
so there we go.
That does make it
Well,
difficult.
Well, we got a
still-
month though, so maybe we'll work with that. I mean,
And I don't want to purchase.
no, I don't think we should.
I don't want to purchase,
Oh,
have to
the book.
purchase for myself.
I got you.
To read something that.
Right,
Or go on Kindle.
right.
well, you
I
can
think-
you can donate it to the
Hey, could we go on
library.
the line?
Well, unless you write in
Yeah,
it, because
maybe.
I heard you.
Well,
I
I
think we
started
just have to
writing
do
it
the
in
best we
pencil
can
now,
do.
so we're gonna raise it.
There is no perfect
What?
solution
No,
for
there
that.
isn't.
But,
All right.
but 3 titles, 30-day period, I think that,
Right.
does that seem reasonable?
It doesn't.
Because
We
that's
can make
about
that
all I
be
can
Yeah.
the
manage.
maximum, if we can get the book, right, we'll give it our best effort if we can get the book and read it in time,
Yeah.
and that's up in the air,
We'll
right?
make
But
it
that
That's
can be-
for,
on you.
that's for
Yeah,
us,
it-
but how many books do we tell, how many books must Stephanie and staff read? And not, instead of doing their, the job of getting grants and,
All of them.
We
That's
just,
a tough one.
I know,
All of them
but-
that are reconsidered.
we need to
And-
give her a time. I
and,
mean, we need, that,
I was thinking the 3 a month was, unless she's got more staff that they could do more or something and get ahead, but
So you're thinking, you were thinking along the same lines
what,
as
what,
me,
yeah.
that it's
That's
for
was my
Stephanie,
thought, yeah,
3 a month.
yeah,
3 for library staff, 3 for the board.
yeah.
Is that too much for,
that's too much for me, honestly. And I like to read all the books. If you say library director doesn't have to review the book, we're going based on the committee. To read 3 books a month and do my job,
I think-
it's a lot.
Well, you are reading it during your work time.
Everybody is.
Well,
I do feel like they're important and we need to get to them. It's just gonna take some time because, we have to prioritize what we do every
Right.
day and
Well, can we maybe put something down that there is a 3-person committee that is responsible for reading the book that is reconsidered, that to be reconsidered?
Reconsidered.
Is that
Yeah.
reconsidered? And they bring, can we kind of take it, but you're the only one that appeals it though, correct?
no, they appeal it.
But we,
I typically write the letter and they appeal it to y'all.
no, but that's what I mean.
Right,
Yeah.
makes the
Is
decision.
you're the one that makes the decision, send it to them, and if they appeal it, then that's when it comes back. Is that when you read it already, though? So we're talking, we need to give 3 other people permission to actually appeal, or to say no or yes to these books?
Yeah, to make a decision.
Well, okay.
Where I would usually,
Be
they
the
would
only
read
one.
it, they would give me their thoughts, I would read it, I would look at their thoughts and say, I get where you're coming from, but after I look at it, I think it needs to be moved to adult, or,
so it sounds like we need a different structure of how the librarians deal with reconsiderations. I mean, the idea of a committee, in other words.
if you want to do a committee
Of the
so
board?
You don't read every
No.
book, nobody
of
reads.
staff,
Yeah.
To get through
You
more
Spread
books.
it out a little bit.
yeah.
We've got enough committees.
That's
As long as you understand
that.
that it's committee reviewed,
Yeah,
that I will not see
No,
the book, may not have read the book.
because
I
We-
think,
And let the board select the committee.
I think that we
Of
just need to
librarians?
put out the letter
I don't know who they are, how would I make
That-
that decision?
this is just gonna take time. We have so many reconsiderations, and you prioritize, you know what needs to be done in the library. We don't know what needs, we don't know everything that you encompass every minute of every day,
You're saying.
and nor are we supposed to.
Sorry?
The running of the library is your job. So, You just, if.
We
if-
take your request seriously. I
Right.
read every single one of them. I look at all the
Exactly.
reviews. It just takes time.
And that's what we're gonna go with.
And then we can revisit this. It's not like this is the end of the
Right,
conversation.
exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
But the board will only consider 3 books
Per
Um,
month,
Per month.
yeah.
a month,
Of appealed books,
appealed
Right.
books a month, because
right.
we,
And I have to tell you, it takes me a long time to get through these teen books.
If
Because like
you're
Pat
not, if
said,
you don't want to read something,
Yeah.
it's a
Yes.
struggle sometimes.
Some of them I can go right through, but
Speed read.
a couple of them have been very good.
Yeah,
Can we take a
but the ones
5-minute
that
break?
aren't.
Please?
yes, all right.
Thank you.
We're gonna
Just
take a
just
5-minute
five.
break. So everybody can run to the restroom.
Please do, please do.
We only have 3 more. Okay, during reconsideration, the item under review will remain available in the library. That's the current policy.
That's the current.
Well, until we vote
But-
to move it or remove it.
Right, we can't really
Which one?
remove it.
But didn't we say we don't have many copies of it?
I was
So
gonna say, so
it's not really going to be there?
Shelf anyway.
Well,
Oh, okay.
all that means is that the book won't be taken out of the library.
Which it can't be because we're busy with it.
Right. So we're gonna just leave that
We'll be
one.
taking it out of the
Right,
library.
That makes sense.
But we don't check it out, right?
Yes, we do.
Stephanie? We have to check it out, or do you just hand it to me in the data? So it looks like someone else, why the reconsideration? So 7 times will add to,
They can put holes on it, but it's checked out.
That's how it looks to the public, that it's
so the
checked out.
data for how many times this book has been checked out will add 7 checkouts to that total.
And sometimes that's all these books have ever been checked out.
That's right.
And I think we need to put in there about the 2-year thing. Is that a shelf life? If it's not been checked out for 2 years, the book,
That's not a hard rule. It depends on what the book is, but typically, we will weed a book. That's the report we look at, but if it's like this
A classic.
Shakespeare or whatever, or if we're moving it, would take our last book about that subject off the shelf. We're gonna leave it until we can find more things. But
I guess,
that's
yeah.
generally the rule. That's the reports we run. Like, nobody's touched this book in this many years.
you
Why
ever-
do we still have it?
Have
But
you ever
that's-
removed
that's not
one
part of
under this
reconsideration.
rule? Have you ever removed any books from this rule since you've been
Removed
here?
for-
Yeah, once, if they haven't been checked out in a certain period of time,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our main
they're moved out, right?
weeding. Yeah,
Okay,
we
okay.
get rid of hundreds of books
Oh, okay.
based on that. There's no way to bring in thousands of books and not have, not thousands going out, but a
Well,
lot
yeah.
going out.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the ones that had been reconsidered, we looked at it and we was like, nobody's checked out this book. Why is it even still on the shelf? And we weeded it, so.
Okay. L is materials under review will be posted on the library website along with the specific action that is requested for the material and the status of the review. Yeah,
I think that's,
It's already there.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
We're
that's
already
right.
doing that.
it's just, right.
And then M, a petitioner has 15 days to appeal to the board a decision of a request by the director of the libraries.
The idea there is that the petitioner can't come back 6 months after asking for a review and then decide that the board, that they want to appeal to the board. It has to be done in a timely fashion.
Right, once I make my decision, they don't just have an endless amount of time to then appeal it to the board. They
have
can't
to do
come back a
another
year later.
reconsideration.
Yeah. And say, oh, I want to appeal it now. Well, by that time, I'd have to read it all over again. We'd have to just restart the whole thing, so. There just seems to be a time limit, I think. Whatever that is, whatever that amount.
Okay, so that would stay.
Can you say 30 days to appeal it?
You can. I mean, we
Keep
just
everything-
recently got one that was like a month and a half old. That's just what I'm trying to
From the
avoid.
date that it was reconsidered or the date that you sent the
The
appeal?
date that I sent the letter.
30 days seems reasonable.
Okay, we'll change that to 30. They have 30 days.
I did want to add, and I brought this up in the email, and it hints at what Danny sort of said. I know people are very opinionated, But I'm sick of reading these. It's not an avenue to insult me or my
I know.
staff, these reconsiderations and these appeals.
I agree.
I don't think that we should have to. If, like the last one that I sent y'all, all she needed to do was that first sentence. I would like to appeal your decision. That's all you need to do. All that other stuff doesn't need to be in there.
It doesn't need to get personal.
Right. And I don't want these people to get in trouble either, because they're not saying, in my opinion, staff is this, Stephanie Howard is this. They're saying she is this, and she's writing to the board and other people. And I don't think any staff person should have to undergo that. It's not a vehicle to insult me or them. It's a process where you can say, hey, take a look at this book. And if you didn't like my decision, just say, I would like to appeal this to the board. Done.
We could adopt language in this document similar to the, how the decorum of the public meeting. So we can use some of that same language.
Yeah,
in-
that and our code of conduct for how employees are treated by the public. They're,
Yes.
free to do their job unharassed,
Is-
free from this kind of language.
Does the county have some similar policy? So if you're working in the tax assessor's office, do you know, is there some policy countywide that we could copy?
As far as how,
But, right, the harassing staff or using
Yeah.
defamatory language or something.
I
that
can
may
look,
be-
but we have that policy.
Okay, oh, okay, well, if we already have it,
Yeah.
then, but then how does one enforce that?
I think you need to put it in this specific thing, say that we're following this and that you can't just use this as an avenue to berate
Right.
the staff.
To explain why you want to be
Right.
reconsidered and why you want it to be appealed, but all the excess doesn't have to be in
And
there.
this is another reason why we should have a library attorney. Because when things become slanderous and you're defaming someone's character, just because you can, because you're the public, is not right.
It goes both ways, though. We can't do it to the public either.
Well, we don't call these people what they call us.
But you do slander sometimes. You can. I'm not saying you do. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that.
I was going to
It
say,
can
please
be said. It can be said. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and that's different with the board and with me.
Right.
These people, and they understand that. They can say whatever they want to, and I'm not going to respond. But that doesn't mean that I have to. Just, if you want to reconsider a book, state why you want the book reconsidered. And then if you want to appeal the book, state that you want to appeal the book.
Can't you just
That's all
say
I need.
it's the same speech quorum for the meetings of profanity and the code of conduct that we use is the same in emails and towards the My Library stuff?
Yeah, I
as
think
in the
we can
meeting?
use a combo of the conduct and that to just say, and here are the consequences. If you do this, your reconsideration will not be
Right.
heard.
I think that's fair. It's
I
certainly
think that's
not
fair.
asking too much to
No.
just submit a request that's not defamatory.
What I'll agree to do is to reconstruct this with a preamble and then try to take into account the things that we said today. I mean, I'm happy to do that.
Are we good with, is everyone good with
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
he's been
just
taking
a
notes. I
draft.
Okay.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if we've put it in, but should it be put in that each board member needs to have read the book in order to vote on a reconsideration?
Yes,
As
because if that has
just
not been put in, we need
As
to
a
put.
policy,
Yeah.
Yes.
How can we vote if we haven't read it? That doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
And it's not doing our job.
right?
Right. Did you get that?
Yeah. I got it.
That's an N, by the way.
Yeah, that would be N. Okay, anything else?
I have one more
Okay.
thing to
sorry.
say that I thought about the other day. So, the Library Bill of Rights and the Freedom to Read Statement, which is in your South Carolina State
Right.
Library Handbook. So the Library Board of Pickens County Library System endorsed that statement in 1997, and since then it has been in the back of the policy manual. These are things that we give to, I got one when I started here, even before me, in the new hire book that we give everybody, it's in there. And it says that Pickens County Library System endorses the Library Bill of Rights and the Freedom to Read Statement. I don't know if you want to continue to do that, but I think it's something to think about when you're working on policy, if you will still endorse this or not. And if not, we need to take it out of the books. Just something to consider, because if you are making policy that doesn't match this, then what are we doing? Why are we giving it to new hires?
Is that in, did you make?
I did. I made copies for everybody. I didn't want to get it confused with everything else, but it is something that has been endorsed by this system. It was something that I was proud of when I started to work here, that they did endorse that, and it's something that is important to all professional librarians, and is something that we give to new staff in their notebooks. So we need to make a decision on that. If the policies aren't matching that, we need to roll it back or make some sort of decision.
So we should all read this before next board meeting.
Yes.
Well, it's in your
It's in our-
state
right.
library handbook, so you've
I
had
haven't
it.
memorized it.
What?
It's a really,
What's wrong with you?
the Bill of Rights is a, I believe, a good document.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Anything
Can I-
else?
I just want to
Susan?
say something really quickly. I know the library's been put a lot of times in a negative light, but I've been privy just this summer with grandchildren, the programs and the things that are going on. It's just wonderful, and to see the activity and the children enjoying themselves and all of that. And I just think it needs to, take the negative, let you see the positive. And then I've seen the other things that have been online about the adult programs, the painting thing, just social activities for Pickens County residents. And so I just wanted to say that
We have an amazing staff.
you do, and I, as a citizen, appreciate everything that's been going on, because it's just fun to watch.
Not to mention that libraries are the bedrock of civilization.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
may I make a motion?
To what, adjourn?
No, it's not that. I move that the event, Weabo Demon School, that's scheduled for Wednesday, July the 24th, at the Sarlin Library in Liberty, be canceled. And if I get a second, I'll like to be the first to explain why I would like to do this, why I'm making this motion, to speak to the motion.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Do you
Yeah,
need a second?
yeah.
I second.
Oh, I thought you wanted to tell us why you
Yeah,
wanted it.
no, if you get a second, if I don't get a second,
I got
there
a
wouldn't be no.
second. You got a second,
Okay,
sir.
Okay. Weibo's term used to define a person who has a Japanese culture obsession or fetish, which means an inanimate object worshipped for its supposed magical powers, or because it is considered to be inhabited by a spirit, even to the point of rejecting your birth culture and embracing and romanticizing the Japanese culture. It can also be used derogatory. It can be used as a derogatory term to describe these same people. So, from Wikipedia, the story follows, and it's basically how it's promoted on the website. It says that basically the story follows, if I can say the names correctly, Aruma Suzuki, a 14-year-old human boy who is sold to a demon by his lazy, selfish, neglected neglectful parents, the demon known as Sullivan takes Aruma to the demon world and officially adopts him as his grandson. He enrolls Aruma in the Belial's school for demons, where he is the head master and where Aruma quickly befriends the demons, Alice, Asmodeus, and Clara Valak. However, Sullivan tells Aruma to never reveal that he is human, since he will be eaten if anyone finds out. I'm not bringing up religion in this. This is from going from darkness to light, from the wrong to right, to evil to good. This type of, with demons, a demon school, and it's for teenagers. I really have a problem with this, okay? And so that's why I wanted to bring it to the board tonight, because we're pressed for time. It's next week. And so my motion would be for it to be canceled.
Can I talk a
Yes,
little bit about
you
this? I knew about this, talked with the staff. Their weeaboo, I don't know, I'm not young enough to know what the word means, but it's basically Japan nerd. And that could be taken derogatorily, the word nerd. It's kind of like that. It's not a slur. It's just like, I'm a nerd for Japan, Japanese culture, Japanese things. And it's their program at Liberty that's similar to our anime program here at Easley. And at Liberty, the kids vote on what kind of anime they want to watch. And this was one of the ones they wanted to watch. I looked it up, great reviews for this, even more for this age group than most, and anime is tricky sometimes. But this conversation reminded me a little bit, not too long ago, a character who was going to a wizard school. And it was kind of the same thing. So the Harry Potter books, along the same lines. It's imaginary characters in a different realm. And I was trying to look at, it seemed like this was more about demons within Japanese culture than it was demons within Christian culture. So the program had great reviews. It's mythological characters in a different sort of mythological school. And I don't know if you read the reviews, but he's trying to fit in as a demon, but he's doing a really bad job because he's so nice and he's converting these other demons to do nice things, so they're being bad demons. So they wanted to watch this. I looked at the reviews and it looked great, and I said, based on these reviews, and it's fine. Nothing that I saw would say that it should be canceled.
Do we know how, I can't vote on anything, I don't know I haven't seen this or read this. Do we know how it ends, or is the moral that good triumphs evil, or?
I don't know how it ends.
don't
It's,
know.
I believe it's based on a series of books, and there are a ton of books, I think, and this is the animated version of that.
Okay.
Demonology is real, and I know that's up for debate, but
I don't know that this is demonology in terms of Harry Potter book is teaching people about wizardry.
This is
This
actually
is-
demons, though.
Do you not think that the teenagers know that this is mythical and that they know it's make-believe? Because when I was, again, my favorite, Barnes & Noble, they call it manga, is that the same
Oh,
as
yeah.
anime? Tons of those books, and the kids are all over those books. So, do you not think that they know that this is mythological and they're
who knows?
teenagers?
Who knows? But I've seen people enter into this world and read about people that have entered into this world,
Into the Japanese culture?
the demon world. demons are demons in Japan, whether they're demons here. When it says demons, it's entering into a world of darkness, okay? I'm just telling you, I'm just asking the guys, I made a motion, got a second? If we can, call for the vote, if everybody's ready to call for a vote, or you want more discussion?
I'd just like to say, I don't feel like I can vote on anything I haven't read or seen. I'd just be making a decision without having all the information. If I had time, I don't want to watch this movie, but I would, so I could make an informed decision. I'd like to know the theme of the movie. It's possible the end is that good does triumph evil, and then that's a good message, right? But we don't know that because I haven't seen it. I don't know what to do. The time frame is soon. Is that a movie that
I believe it's on a subscription service that we have, so I could try to get it to you. I'd also you have to be clear about your reasoning for canceling it, and then any other programs that fall within that reasoning would be subject to the same scrutiny.
I'm with Karen. I don't know enough about this. I tend to give more credit to and they happen to be young people that do know. So,
I call for the question, but you got to vote on the call to the question. There must be
Okay.
two-thirds, must be a two-third
so we
vote
can vote to
to
cancel.
vote or not vote on, so if two-thirds do not want to vote, it won't go to a vote. That's.
If you are able to get that to us, how would we handle that then?
We would not be able to cancel in time,
That's what I'm thinking.
because we would have to have a meeting and vote on it before that time.
What I wonder.
And are we ever able to have sort of a Zoom meeting just to vote on one thing? Or does it have to be an official board meeting with agenda posted and all that sort of thing?
Yeah.
All of that.
That gets complicated, okay.
I would have to rely on the discretion of the librarians at this point.
And you're more than welcome to look up the reviews and, I'll research that like I did. There was nothing that I saw, based on programming criteria and other programs that we have, that this would not fit in with that. I mean, we have vampire schools, and every school that you can think of is in a teen book, or so for me, it just went along those same lines. It was a mythical, fictional school. It could have been a troll school. It could have been a monster school.
Could be Greek mythology,
Yeah.
which is full of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So what do we do?
So it won't go to a vote because, I would, if I was chairman, and I'm not, and I'm glad I'm not, but if you would call for.
I was going to do this, say,
make
who,
it.
because your motion was to cancel the movie, so those in favor of canceling the event.
No, it was to,
Whether to have a vote.
to vote on.
Whether to have a vote.
I called for a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were voting,
So-
that you wanted to vote to cancel it.
Yeah. Well,
The motion
that
was-
is my motion.
Right.
But you've got to have two-thirds vote whenever I call for a question. That means stop what you're doing and we vote on the motion. So if you don't want to vote, okay, and I would just say, all in favor of bringing this to a vote.
Okay.
You're calling the question.
I'm
Yeah.
calling the question.
You're
but you need-
okay.
Yeah.
Because
you
two of you
need a
said that you didn't
two-thirds.
feel comfortable voting because you haven't read it or
Right.
know anything
To
about it.
stop the discussion and to vote on it,
Okay, so those in favor of stopping the vote
Stopping the question.
Stop calling the question. To stop the vote.
Okay. I'm in favor of calling the question.
Okay.
I don't feel
I
qualified.
think I understand.
Okay. If you're in favor of the question, then we vote. If you're in favor of
If you're raising your
stopping the
hand,
discussion.
then you want to vote.
then we're bringing it to a
No,
vote.
that's what I'm saying. No, we want to stop the vote.
Okay, I need to understand what I'm voting on.
Then
I
you're
don't
not,
either.
you're not in favor of calling the question if you don't feel
Okay.
comfortable voting
Yeah.
on it.
Okay.
You're
Okay,
not
so-
in favor of calling
Okay.
the question.
Thank you for
Yeah,
clarifying.
and it just stops all the discussion.
Okay, so you're asking, say it again.
To
I think we're
stop the
ti- I think we're all
voting.
tired.
To stop the voting on this because we're not comfortable voting on this.
Okay.
All those in favor of not
Not
voting.
voting, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of not voting. I think I'm very tired, Danny.
Okay,
Okay.
It's been a long day. I'm happy to go watch this movie.
we're close, and that brings me to another point. I would love for us to have a parliamentarian in here because I know just enough Robert's Rules of Orders.
I have a
from
Robert's Rules of Orders
Past
right now.
experience to be dangerous, okay? So, I would like to see us get someone to help us, and believe you me, when we get on track with the Robert Rules of Order, business moves. It really moves quickly.
I just went and bought a book at
Also,
Barnes and Noble.
So there you go.
come back and educate us on that.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, any more?
What is this?
She's-
That's what we're supposed to look at. It was part of your packet.
Okay. What is it? We're
It's the
supposed to
mem-
look at for
It's
what?
the memo from the state librarian of what is required to get state aid under Proviso 27-1.
Is this something we're, is this just an informative
It's for your
piece?
information.
Okay.
We do have the things that they are requiring right now, and we're actually working to make them better. So, but we can sign it to be in compliance and get our state aid.
This was the new thing
And there is a sample collection development policy in there that we will be looking at
Okay, so
to bring
we
a
look at this until
collection.
next meeting?
that, well, it's just informing you of where our library stands in conjunction with that, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just wanted you to be aware of that information as we go through this process of all the things you're changing, that we already do comply with what they're asking for to get state aid. It's that we have a reconsideration form,
Right.
that our library card application has the age limit on there for getting a card and all that stuff, and that we have a collection development policy. And we have those. Right now, we're working to make those better and clearer, but we are in compliance right now.
This isn't the new thing that's out there.
Yes.
Yes.
But, so this is saying that we are in compliance with the new thing that's out there?
No, that's a memo saying what you have to be in compliance, and I'm saying we are in compliance. We have all the things.
Wow. Okay.
So just look it over if you have any questions
Just
at the
been a
next
while.
meeting.
Anything else? A motion to adjourn?
I'll make the-
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Sorry.
Is the meeting